if we would invest in our people and not be concerned about whether they leave or not,
Yeah.
and I believe this, and I've said this a number of times, that I think that education and development is really going to be the next standardized benefit, because you don't tell a new employee that, if you stay with me 3 years, I'll give you health insurance, or I'll let you enroll in a 401k plan if you stay with us, commit to 3 years. But, oh, if you want to go get a master's degree, you have to give me 3 more years of work after you complete the master's degree.
3 things you'll learn about today's episode. Number one, why retention is the wrong goal and how investing in your people delivers a stronger, longer lasting ROI. Number two, how to transform a frontline workforce into a thriving community. And number three, the blueprint for building business models that serve both profit and people, proving compassion and competitiveness can coexist. Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. What do you get when you combine a CEO who started on the factory floor at age 12, a leader who has proved you can build a thriving business and a thriving workforce at the same time, a two-time author challenging everything we think we know about retention, and the founder of a nonprofit that's rewriting how companies care for their people? You get Mark Peters, the heart and mind behind Butterball Farms, one of America's top 101 companies to work for, and The Source, a groundbreaking nonprofit that's changing how companies care for their people. He started on the factory floor at 12, took over the family business at 30, and turned it into a national model for people-first leadership. A two-time author, a TEDx speaker, Mark's latest book, The Retention Trap, challenges leaders to stop hoarding talent and start investing in it. He believes that business can be both wildly successful and deeply human, and that is exactly why he is here today. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Lyndsay, that's an amazing introduction. I'm going to go
I
back
will
and
send it to you.
I'm going to get the transcript from that introduction. That's
I will
amazing.
send it to you. That was a really fun one to
You
write.
just you just made me tired. That's like a lot of work.
You've done incredible stuff, and I have been looking forward to this for months. So this, do you, I mean, you know the show, you know the book.
Yeah.
Um, I start every episode the same. Could you please, for those that don't know you, share a little bit about your story?
You shared a lot of it. I mean, I started working for my dad when I was 12 years old. And in the book The Source, I talk about my dad basically giving me this option to work in the yard or work in the plant. And he said there's no more summers at the beach for you. It's time to go to
Mm.
work at age 12. And I chose working in the yard, but I had really bad allergies as a kid. So
Mm.
within a week, I was working in the temperature controlled environment of a food plant. And you know again, I loved your introduction, but I think one of the learnings for me early on, 12 to 16 years old, was that the people that worked on our plant floor had a very different lived experience than I did, and they had very different priorities in their lives. And they worried about things I never thought about, like
Mm.
food and clothing and kids' safety and transportation. And so, I mean, I started having some cognitive dissonance about my family business and the people that work there at a pretty young age.
Yeah.
And I think that theme has driven me through my entire life up until like the latest project that I hope we get a chance to talk about
Oh, we
today.
will.
That I'm super excited about, but it's probably, this project is probably the next 10 years of my life. So I'm not stopping anytime soon.
I love it.
But I do think the opportunity, and this gets into like the retention trap, the opportunity that we have as individuals that have the privilege of running an enterprise, um, is, if we choose to be intentional about it, the impact that we can have on people's lives is incredible.
Agree.
And it's often unseen by us, and it's not. because of leaders' hearts. I know a lot of CEOs and they've got great hearts and they want to do good. I think it comes down to maybe not having been given permission
Mhm.
or not ever really having a conversation about how to engage the enterprise.
Well,
So
I think you hit on it early on, and it became so much part of your DNA by being on the floor and by working with the factory workers. You got to see a very different perspective than the boss,
yeah,
and that seeped into your bones. And you would always be cognizant of that as you led. And I don't think many CEOs have that same opportunity. I mean, we've seen the show Undercover Boss, and they're always surprised when they're
right.
seeing what their workers are putting up with. And I wish more leaders really understood that. But you have really focused on the humanity and the people that make up your workforce in such an important way. Can you just talk a little bit about your view on retention and why this is such an important topic? Because I think a lot of leaders get it wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? So in trying to title the book, The Retention Trap, um we went back and forth a lot about it. And even in writing the book, and my writer would say people don't care about this, but we scrapped the manuscript after 2 years of work and started over because it was very much this almost fear-based. Like if we don't figure this out as entrepreneurs and small to mid-market companies, we're not going to be able to hire the talent that we need in the future demographic setting. Um, and really turning it into more of an opportunity mindset sort of book. And now that it's out, I've asked people who have read it, like, did I accomplish that objective? And I've gotten a pretty overwhelming, like, yes, you did. But you're right. I think we are conditioned, and I very carefully don't want to make entrepreneurs or business owners like feel bad for being in this situation.
Mm-mm.
Like we start our businesses because we have an idea or a product or something that we can do better in the marketplace than somebody else, right? I mean, we live in this competitive world. And so if we're successful, then we have to do something that we maybe didn't contemplate in the beginning, and that's hire people. And as we grow, we discover that people bring all kinds of like nonlinear stuff into our businesses.
100%.
And so then we do things like, hire an HR person, and then we need an HR attorney, and all of those people do one thing for us. They handle those problems and they help de-risk our organization,
Right.
right? And so it's not a surprise to me that we get to a point where we focus on things like retention, like what's your retention rate? What's driving your turnover? How do you drive turnover down? How do you keep people? And I think it's the wrong question. And I think it's the wrong question because, well, for two, and I think it's the wrong question because it doesn't serve us,
Right.
especially in a growing and vibrant business. But it also is, there's something about it for me as an entrepreneur that just doesn't feel like it's in alignment with somebody who likes continuous learning and innovation. Um, like we're just going to keep people. And so my writer asked me for an analogy, and I couldn't come up with a good analogy until I visited Salt Lake City. And I went and visited the Great Salt Lake.
Mm.
And there's like 5 rivers that run into the Great Salt Lake. And no, it's a terminal, what they call a terminal lake. And there's only like 2 organisms that actually live in the lake. So I thought, well, I live in the Great Lakes region, which is one of the most, biodiverse regions on Earth. And there's like water flows in and water flows out, and the floodplain's enormous. And it feeds lots of people and species of fish and birds and all the things. And I'm like, well, that's what we want our businesses to be like. We don't want them to be like the Great Salt Lake. So that's my analogy. I'm like, do you want your
Mm.
business to be
I like
like the
that.
Great Salt Lake? where you like retain everybody. The
Yeah.
logical conclusion of retaining everybody, you know what, and it doesn't even fit in the world we live in. Our
No.
world is changing so fast and it's so dynamic that the best we can do for our business is to have our talent flow through our organizations.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I know where you're going.
that is such a hard conversation to have
Yeah.
in today's like talent environment.
Yeah,
Um,
I think this idea of hoarding people, and I certainly experienced when you had a leader, you were ready to move on to that next role, and your leader was like, "No, no, no, you're too valuable on my team, so I'm not going to let you go." And then
right,
what do you think happens? I'm
right.
resentful, I'm unhappy, I'm not producing the way I was, and all I want to do is get out. So he's basically relegated me to a subpar part of his workforce. And that's stupid. And so if it's not retention that leaders should be measuring, what is it?
Yeah. So, I think it's investing in your people. And there's an old, and I've tried to track down the source of this. So if anybody knows the source, please get back to me. But there's an old comic, and I think it might have been in the New Yorker, I'm not sure, but it's a CEO and a CFO having a conversation. And the CFO says to the CEO, like, well, what if we invest in all these people and they leave? And he says, well, what if we
What if they
don't and they
stay?
stay, right?
Yes,
We've
yes.
all heard that before,
Love
but
that.
it's not, it's true. And I think that if we would invest in our people and not be concerned about whether they leave or not,
Yeah.
and not and I really and I believe this, and I've said this a number of times, that I think that education and development is really going to be the next standardized benefit, because you don't tell a new employee that, if you stay with me 3 years, I'll give you health insurance, or I'll let you enroll in a 401(k) plan if you stay with us, commit to 3 years. But oh, if you want to go get a master's degree, you have to like give me 3 more years of work
Mm.
after you complete the master's degree. And I know that there are people listening to your show that will say I'm crazy, but I have paid now for multiple people's MBAs
Yep.
that actually left us shortly after they completed the MBA.
And how are those people talking about you and your company today?
Oh my word, I've gone back to a couple of them afterwards. Like one of them was involved in our ERP design, and I went back, and like I asked him like how he was doing in the company he works for, and some sort of shortly after he had left, like some perspective on some of the design elements of our ERP system. Happy to go have a coffee, loved to stay in touch, was doing great. He made a great move for him and his family. But it's and I think another gentleman that went to an ice cream manufacturing company has actually sent people to us,
Yeah.
like referred people to come to work for us. So
Yeah. That
um,
short-sighted view of I only pay for my people, um, does not resonate with kind of the global view of let's make the world a better place. Let's feed into this local population or global population that we have. And I think what people forget is when you're a leader, you immediately become the topic of someone's dinner conversation. By you making that move, you will always be looked upon as a generous and smart leader, someone that they will always speak kindly of. And that reverberation is always going to come back to you.
yeah.
So I love that this is how you think, and I'm dying for us to jump into the source because when you and I first spoke, you described this to me, and I thought it was so brilliant. And this was something that we did a lot of at IBM where you were encouraged to interview outside of your reporting chain, do
Yeah.
informational
Yeah.
interviews with other executives. And what that offered was opportunities for you to have different career paths, learn different parts of the businesses, and really seek out new opportunities. And I got 5 jobs doing that. So I know it works. But
Right.
can you describe what you built with the source and why?
So, yeah, so I sort of think about like the book, The Source. and then the organization. So the book, The Source, is really sort of the origin story of what's now The Source as an organization. And then the retention trap is sort of what I think of as the next phase of a continuum, right? So the source is really designed to help people stay at work. And so it's a lot of what they do is responding to the complexity in people's lives that can take them out of a job.
Right.
And so this goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, is having some sort of proximity to people who have a very complex life, and setting up a structure that can reliably help them solve problems so they don't lose a job.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've learned over the years is that people who are living in this constant state of stress are not um, physiologically able to do like long-term planning. The existence of cortisol in their system, by definition, reduces their ability to do problem solving. So if you want to ask somebody, what do you want to do in a year or 3 years? If they can't think beyond what they're going to do with their next paycheck,
Okay.
it's really hard for them to answer that question. But if you can get them stabilized so that they're not in that state of crisis constantly. And now we've learned how to do that.
Mm.
22 years of data, national replication on the source. Um, we know how to do that. And we've got a model that other companies can participate in to get people to stable. And
So let's
it's
give folks the 30,000-foot view of what the source is and why you created it, because I want them to really understand it. I think it's just brilliant. And you took me through a piece of it, but
yeah.
just for folks to really get it.
So, I had this desire to do some of this stuff for my employees, but I mean, we were quite small at the time and I couldn't afford to do that. Um, and so I had to go find other businesses and say, hey, what do you guys think about having a third party do these kinds of things for the people that work for us? And Fred Keller with Cascade Engineering helped me get together 16 business leaders, and I recruited 8 of them.
Mhm.
So, 50% batting average, whatever. But we got started and we did this. But the idea was, there were a couple things. We had to have an agreement around how we were going to measure results. And so if somebody doesn't leave your company, it's a non-event. How do you measure it? And so we said that if the source worked with an individual 3 times, it was considered a job save.
Mhm.
And then we agreed that the cost of turnover at that time was $3,200 a turnover event.
Mm.
So that was an agreement across all of the initial companies. Um, and we also didn't want to recreate any services. We did not want the source to be a counseling center. We did not want them to be a transportation hub. We did not want them to be, in the housing market. So their job was to go out to the community and find those resources that delivered
Connect.
reliably those kinds of solutions to the people that worked for us.
Mm.
And now, 22 years later, every one of the member employers gets a report out of all of the different things that the source has solved for
Mm.
the people that work for them. And, I think right now the top 3 in West Michigan are housing, transportation, and food insecurity.
Yeah.
Childcare has dropped down a little bit over the last couple of years. But the big 3 are usually like the big 3. But then the other sorts of things that people go to the source for are incredible. But again, it's more to be a conduit and almost a concierge service for the people that work for us that need those services. Because the other thing we learned is people that require a lot of social services or help in doing some of that stuff, as a society, we don't value their time.
No.
And so they spend a lot of time standing in lines waiting for services to get into a service provider or to get on a list or to talk to a counselor or whatever it is. So what the source does is they get them an appointment and then they follow up to make sure they got what they needed. So
Right.
they walk into an organization, they have a meeting time and a person to meet with, and then the source follows up to make sure that it happened and they got what they needed, right? And they've never been treated that way. So now you're not only are you providing this service for the people that work for you, you're also saying I value your time and we're going to make this as efficient as possible for you. And it's over 22 years now. We have returned we're 300% ROI to our member companies, which
Mm,
is
that's
insane.
incredible. It's incredible. But so talk to me about the longevity of the employees because you've got 8 leaders that agreed this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, are they all seeing the same thing as you? Are they all seeing their people stay?
Well, I mean, that's where we get the 300%. I mean, the biggest contributor to the ROI metric is retention,
Yeah.
is people staying in the company.
Yeah.
Now, and I know that people listening are going to say, well, wait a minute, the goal is to not have people stay. Wait, you're saying that the metric is people are staying. And it's yes, and would be my response to
Hmm.
that question.
Hmm.
So, but yes, we are seeing people staying longer. We are seeing people who get their lives restored, people who move from not having a house to buying a house. We're seeing people stay in the same school system because they don't have to move from one place to another. And our facility in particular is in one of the highest. The public schools that are the closest to our plant have some of the highest transient rates in the
Mm.
city of Grand Rapids. Um, and so, I mean, you think about some of those problems that come with that as well. Like
And you're,
how do you run a school when you've got 50% transient?
yeah,
You're
you're
50% of
doing
your students turnover every year.
you're doing so much more than just leading your own company.
Right.
You're making an impact locally, and this isn't just a local thing. I mean, 12 other states at last count that I knew of had adopted this same methodology. Is that an accurate number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're finding a couple. We just found. Can I give a shout out to another company that I just
Please
discovered?
go for it. We
Well,
always want to
and
highlight great leaders.
actually,
Go.
I will. We're going to do this after the show, but I want to connect you with Paula Marshall. You don't happen to know Paula, do you?
I don't.
Do you?
I don't know
Oh, okay.
Paula.
Well, you guys are going to be like sisters after you meet her.
I love it.
She runs an organization called
Hmm.
Bama Foods, and I just recently discovered that they have developed their own Bama Cares Center, which is it, and it's all done privately, but they're doing all the same things that the source. So I've just asked if we can include them in sort of this national count of
Yes.
source adaptations. I had this amazing conversation with her team this just a week ago.
Love it.
So
All right, hold
it's
that thought for just a second. Guys, if you are enjoying this conversation as much as I am, please go out, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. It helps us grow the show. It helps me continue to have guests like Mark and share stories that are so, so important and groundbreaking for all of us. So, Mark, question. How do you talk to leaders who don't get this and who really don't understand that investing in their people helps your ROI? Because I know so many leaders that are like, I don't have time to talk to my people, or yeah, that's all nice and fine. And I've got someone to help with that, but they really don't give it the time it needs. How do you talk to them?
So I think that I have two answers to two answers to that. Sometimes if I'm out speaking, I kind of like to have those discussions from a stage, which is interesting. Um, but there are some leaders that just aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that in today's day and age, especially if you're a small to mid-market company, um, we have to figure this talent thing out. Like this has to become one of our core competencies, along with, all of the financial metrics that we run. We have to think about human capital.
100%.
And if we don't have a human capital strategy, I think we're going to lose the rights to get good talent. I just and some of this is in the retention trap. I go through some of the demographics and some of the like large system stuff that's going on, where some like big employers and some like the TPM program from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is a really solid curriculum that's being rolled out across the country. And small to mid-market companies can tap into it for sure, but it's really being deployed more in larger systems, and they're looking to secure talent supply chain 5-10 years out, and they're reaching into high schools and middle schools, and we're small and mid-market companies. We're chugging along, and we're doing what we're doing, and we think that then when somebody leaves, the next thing we're doing is just go to the market and hire the next person. But like I said, I think the next benefit is education and development, and people are going to start showing up and saying, well, what's your development plan for me? And if you're like I have a number of positions in my company that I say are one of one. Like my director of food FSQ, food safety and quality, he's one of one. He's a food scientist. He's got, a technical background. I don't need two of those positions. I need one really good one. And at some point, maybe we don't have the next job for him. I mean, I've talked to a number of my customers and said, what if I could be a talent supply chain for you and not just a product supply chain? And they're like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like,
How do you do that?
yeah. And so, then it would be getting him to help us hire his replacement. But then you get a longer window instead of like 2 weeks notice. So we're trying really hard right now to de-risk this conversation in our organization. So, and that's what I wanted to get to talk to you about, this project
Yes.
that
Well,
I'm
and,
working
and
on.
let's spend a minute on that because I kind of hinted on the topic when I was talking about IBM, but this concept of, when you hit the cul-de-sac in
Yeah,
your career path and there are no more vice president roles for you, or you've been waiting for that director role for so long, but there's none available. Are you just going to lose the person? Or can you create a bigger pool so they can go someplace where they're still part of the family or
right.
still part of the the group or the conglomerate of, or whatever you want to call it, the companies that value that talent and want to see you win. And
Right.
that's the piece I definitely want you to dig in on. So I'm okay if this goes a little long.
Okay, so and I love that, and I think you're right. It just and it ends up being like, oh, I'm going to lose this great person. Well, you're probably going to lose them anyway.
Yeah.
So let's understand that we can't actually keep people at our companies, and if we're just going to pay them more money or give them better benefits to get them to stay, but they're really looking for the next like skill challenge or whatever challenge, is just offering them more money really, is that really what you want to do? Like, don't you want them to go get the next best thing for themselves and then help you find their replacement? And I think that's a much more human approach. But the project we talk about it, I talk about it in a retention trap, is building a network of employers. So when we launched the book in June, I was speaking at the book launch, and I said, what I really would love to do is get 7 to 10 employers who would help me build a network like this. And I said, what I think would be really cool as a starting point would be to get people from a $17 to $20 an hour job into a $30 an hour job in 18 to 24 months, taking people completely over the benefits cliff. And we don't have to get into what the benefits cliff is, but there's a point where, people making 20-ish dollars an hour or less, if they take promotions and get paid more, they actually are worse off if they're getting any sort of government subsidies or anything. And so you think about an individual who has to make the jump from $20 to $30 an hour. And this is a problem that has not been solved by our
Mm-mm.
government, by our nonprofits. And so I now have 7 companies, and we are kicking off our first pilot in either late December or early January, where we're going to identify 15 people that work for my company, and then we're going to move them into facilities roles in a healthcare company in 18 to 24 months. And we are going to bring all of the education and development
Love that.
pieces to them so that they can go from, again, needing these kind of social supports to not needing them in like one jump. And I think that what's so interesting, and we're going to learn so much, is that this becomes employer led.
Yeah.
So we will be actively bringing in the exact training and development pieces that those individuals need,
Love it.
as opposed to trying to have the market come to us all the time and say, hey, we have these things and these things. And those providers are almost always behind the curve as to what we need in our businesses today. Again, because the rate of change is so much faster than it used to be. So
Oh
I'm
gosh,
super excited about this. And the energy of having like 6 other CEOs, like they pushed my timeline shorter. So the
I
lady that I've
bet.
got who's sort of coordinating the build out of this, and I looked at each other after one of the meetings and I was like, hey, I wasn't the one that shortened the timeline, you know? So
Will you please come back to the show and talk about what happened? Because I want to hear this a few months from now when it you're in it, everyone's thriving. I would love to see how it goes, and I would just love to talk to you again about it.
I would be honored to do that. I really would. And I because I think we're onto something. The energy that got unlocked with the employers that came around the table was um was
Oh,
even greater than I expected. So
like that just makes my mouth water. Like this is everything I love when leaders can connect the dots and recognize how powerful something like this can be. And there's so many angles you're hitting. It's just so, so cool. Um,
But Lyndsay, I want to really quick, I want to come back to one of the points that you made early on in the
sure.
introduction. You know what we get to do as employers is we build frameworks. Like we build frameworks to deliver a product or a service or whatever. And this is to help our people be successful and doing it with other employers, which is, I know that's a different way of thinking about this, but the reward for all of us, and I mean all of us, our enterprises, the people that work for us in the community, it's almost unmeasurable what kind of potential it can unlock.
Yeah, okay, so good. You'll come back. So after this, we'll get
I'll
you
come
locked and
back.
loaded. Okay, so some fun questions. What inspires you?
What inspires me is the stories of people's lives. I end the book, The Retention Trap, with a young lady who moved through companies who invested in her over the course of her career, and the impact that just her life alone has had within her family, not to mention all the people that have worked for her over the years. It's the story of the guy on my plant floor when I was walking through, and he said, you know, my son just graduated from Harvard Law, and that would never have happened if it wasn't for you. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm pretty sure that's not true, but I'm going to take you and your son to dinner because I want to hear the story. I
Oh,
mean, you don't know, but if you take the level of intention
yeah,
to build a structure to invest in your people, the ripple effect is greater than you will ever know. And that's what inspires me. It's the stories, quite
me
honestly.
too. Me too. You have built such an incredible legacy, but what would you like your legacy to be?
So our corporate mission statement is enrich lives, and I stay true to that. If I can help other employers do this and they can find more purpose in running their enterprise, And if that translates into people living lives that are more thriving, then I'm happy. That's that I kind of live for that.
Excellent. Beautiful. And I mean, we kind of talked about what's next for you, but what's next for you? I mean, we've got this coming up in December and January. Anything else?
Oh, there's always lots of other next. I think we're like our company's in a great spot. We're contemplating maybe we do an acquisition of some kind. You know, my daughter's off doing great things at school, and I'm super excited to see and support her curiosity. So, I'm 61 and I can't contemplate slowing down anytime soon.
Well, and when you're loving what you're doing, there's no reason to stop. So I
Right.
I think that's powerful. So how can people find you? Where can they get your books? Tell us all the deets, and we'll include all your links in the show notes.
So we have a landing page. It's i3leadership.com. Um, the book, The Source, and the book, The Retention Trap, are available. Well, The Source is mostly on Amazon, but The Retention Trap through most bookstores, also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble for sure. Um, LinkedIn is another great. Mark Peters, Butterball Farms, LinkedIn is a great way to connect. But i3leadership.com is probably the easiest, and it links to everything else.
Beautiful. Well, this has been such a delight. I am so grateful for you coming on the show. I was so looking forward to it. It did not disappoint, and I can't wait to have you back. Any parting words for the audience?
Anybody that listened through the whole thing, thank you very much. Reach out if I can be of any service. And Lyndsay, I can't wait to introduce you to
Paula.
Paula Marshall, because you guys are going to have to meet somewhere and spend a couple days together.
I love it.
I will write that. I will write that in my future notes.
Hey, and thank you for reading my book. That was really a wonderful surprise to hear when we joined the call this morning. So that's
Oh
meant.
yeah, we didn't go through all my notes of the things that I've already put in place from reading your book. I there were some really great points about like the difference between um, benefits and rewards,
Yeah.
and like even your comments about specific hiring manager responsibilities. I'm like,
Oh,
we don't do a great job of that. Like, do we train our hiring managers? And I'm like, we don't do a great job of
it's
doing
such
that.
an easy
So
place to fix, and companies just aren't thinking about it. And, swag is a real easy distraction, but,
yeah,
thinking about the process of somebody coming in new and all the inputs that are coming their way, that's a lot to think about. And I just remember when I was onboarding at the last company I was at, oh my gosh, it was a mess, and no one would take any responsibility. So it was,
yeah. But I even think about like the training and development piece. Like if we went to everybody that ends up with hiring responsibilities and actually invested in them and gave them the skill set to do a great job of making those decisions, and then they end up with better people on their team, like that's so easy. And it's like
so easy. Well, in the whole book, it's all easy. All of it.
it's
It's
all easy.
it's
But there are
none
just
of
a
it
lot
is
of
like earth-shaking science that we've never heard of. It's just served up in a way that's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So
yeah.
it's
No,
yeah,
I loved it. And it was not a it was a pretty easy read, but
easy read.
lots of great, I think I showed you, but I've got all kinds of underlines and corner markings and then notes in the back of the books.
It means so much to me. Thank you, thank you. And guys, like I said, please support the show. Tell your friends. These conversations are an absolute treasure. Mark, you've been a gem, and I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you, Lindsay. I've loved it as well.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for an audience question coming right up. So today, instead of an audience question, I'm going to share a story and some constructive tips that you can use as a leader in your company. So I hit on it in this last episode, and we were talking about the onboarding experience of a new employee. And this is a really easy place for companies to make a big impact on their new employees and really make a difference in how they feel about joining your company. So when I joined the last company I worked for, they did a very poor job of onboarding. And you have to remember, as a new employee, you are getting benefits information, employee handbooks, the rules on just doing your job and what your boss prefers and how you work. Plus, you have to select so many different things. There's your new office, if you're in the office, if you're at home, there's new equipment, there's all the logons, there's all of the HR things that need to be done. It's an exhaustive list. And some companies do a very good job at spacing it out over that first week so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. That they did well. But what they didn't do well was when your employees had questions of, hey, I've been waiting for this person or this process to start, but nobody has reached out to me, or I don't know where to go. And what I faced was a whole lot of passing the buck of, that's not my job, sorry, and not like a handoff of, oh, okay, let me connect you with so and so. They're the person that does that. And I kept reaching out to the HR partner and I kept saying, hey, all of these things that are being sent my way, I'm getting like half of it, not all of it. How can we make this more streamlined? Because I'm hiring and I don't want my new employees to go through this. And I was met every single time with, we don't do it that way. That's not how it's done here. That's not my job. And it seemed to me that she was kind of a central part or the cog that connected all of those things, but she didn't want to be, and no one was asking her to be. And it was really disappointing. It was a tough way to start at a new company. It felt very disorganized, it felt very disconnected, and it made me kind of hesitate in thinking, is this really where I want to be? So I encourage you as a leader to think about those onboarding experience, ask some questions, ask some new hires that have just come on about what it's been like for them. Give them some surveys so you have an idea of how it's going, because this is a really easy way to make a great first impression. And those first impressions really do last, because this is years later and I still remember it and it wasn't great. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode. I absolutely loved it. I hope you did too. Please tell your friends about the show. And we're just starting up with our new live show, which just started this week, called the Leadership Lounge with Lynds. We'll be highlighting other leadership stories. It will be streaming live on LinkedIn, Insta, and YouTube. I hope to see you there. Bring your questions. Thank you for leading with heart, and have the best day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.